waiting for the tub to fill up. I thought that was a good use of that kind of heat system. Seems like a good room to use it in.
Yeah, being naked in any room, even inside in Vermont in wintertime, you're going to be cold. Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, our regular discussion about building science topics and other stuff. This never works when I don't look at the script. You'd think I could remember this. Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Kiley Jacques, GBA Editor.
Hello.
Rob Watsack, Digital Brand Manager.
Hey there.
And Jeff Rose, Producer.
Hi.
You can email your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Well, I think we're off to a little rocky start, but we're going to get it together, I promise here.
It's funny. I was about to say, I was waiting till after you started your intro to say, I'm always amazed how we're in the middle of a conversation before the podcast starts recording, and Patrick just without even taking a breath, just rolls right into the intro. I'm like, how does he do that? Well, obviously he can't do it every time.
Gotta practice.
Yeah, Jeff, you were saying a little bit ago that it's been 3 weeks nearly since we recorded. Is that right?
Yeah.
So we had the summit in between when we last recorded, and I took a week's vacation. And the wheels fell off in the interim.
You'll get right back on, I have no doubt.
How have you guys been? What have you been working on?
Who? Me?
Go ahead. You go first.
Oh, finally making some progress again on my projects and getting ready to get the house all buttoned up on the outside of my kitchen remodel.
So you're still working on your kitchen window, we should tell listeners, but you've moved to the outside detailing, right?
Yeah. So just to recap, a couple of months ago, I just tore some cabinets down and found a cheap window and installed the window. And then, of course, that snowballed into, a full exterior makeover of the kitchen wall. Even though the plan was just to do a kitchen remodel, but, once you do the window, then you got to do flashing. And I was like, well, anyway. So I'm finally, I've got, I got the house wrap up. I actually used, I hadn't mentioned it because they hadn't released it yet, but I had used the Benjamin Opdyke new HydroGap SA, the self-adhered membrane that they just announced at our summit.
How did you like working with it?
It was a dream to work with. It was just...
I've never heard anyone say that about a self-adhered WRB.
Well, that's the thing is that Patrick said, he's like, I heard that stuff, self-adhered stuff is fussy. And I'm like, well, first of all, I comment to him when he said that. I was like, Patrick, this Patrick.
Oh.
I was like, well.
Who's the other Patrick in your life, Kiley?
Yeah.
The thread made me think we were talking about somebody else.
Like, well, I used to work in upholstery, and I also used to work in trade show booths where we'd apply vinyl graphics and that sort of thing. So I had a little experience.
So your description of this being a breeze is really kind of suspect.
But here's the thing: is it all just comes down to having the right skill set, the right experience, because if you just treat it like house wrap where you're going to throw a staple in the middle and then spread it out, right. It's no. So what I actually did is I threw a couple of staples, one in each top corner, and then worked from one of the bottom corners up diagonally, peeling the membrane off, and then running my hand diagonally up the sheet to avoid getting any of the wrinkles as I was doing that. And even in the awkward spots, it was actually really nice to work with. And
did you do it all by yourself, Rob?
I did it 100% by myself.
And how big were the pieces?
Yeah.
Because I think that's part of the discussion.
Yeah.
So their rolls are 5 feet wide. And so 5 feet high is, if you're rolling it out in the normal orientation. And I did sections at least 10 feet wide at a time, and that's the widest section of wall I had to deal with.
And you put this on new sheathing, not on your board sheathing, right? Oh, you don't even have board sheathing, as I recall.
Yeah, I put it on new sheathing, but I also overlapped it over some existing OSB that was on my sunroom and around the corner boards. And, I built that deep window buck for the window and some existing door trim. So I had a lot of interesting corners to transition around.
Do you wrap it in there?
What's that?
Do you wrap it into the window buck?
Well, I basically had to leave some of the tape off of the window buck, and then I rolled the house wrap up over it and then taped back down over it from the window flanges. But yeah, so I got that on. That worked great. And then I finally started putting up the rock wool comfort board with furring strips and that's going to take vertical pine shiplap siding that I sent you guys a picture of. A few of the boards have gone up already.
So you were able to get those boards all the same length, it looked like. Is that true?
Oh,
or are they random?
I got 8s, 10s, and 12s, and I did that deliberately. I mean, they wouldn't have had enough 10s. All I needed really was 10s, except for where the window and door are. So I basically have about 4 feet below the window and 2 feet above the window, and less than 2 feet above the door. So by getting 10s and 12s, the drops from 8s and 12s, the drops from the 12s and the 8s split in half work around the window and the door.
Cool.
So it was good. And you know what? One thing, they say to use 1x4 furring strips when you're putting up that comfort board, just because anything thinner, you're in danger of splitting with the screws when you're screwing.
There's no such thing as 1x4 furring strips. You'd have to use regular pine or something like that.
No, right? Actually, no. Lowe's did have 1x3s and 1x4s.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But what I ended up doing was taking a 7/8 inch spade bit. I know it's fussy, but I wanted to not have any proud screws, and I was using some of those headlock screws. Those what's that?
You recessed these screw heads.
Yeah, so
you're a disaster.
Why? Why did you say that?
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't do that if you were doing a whole house, but
because you're trying to build things.
Yeah.
It's just so time consuming. Is that why?
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the big takeaways is like I take, so much time to do these things because I'm designing on the fly. I'm like checking out the details and how they work. And I backed up a few times on some of the details and started
This
over.
is what happens when the upholsterer does siding.
Nothing wrong with that. Everything you do looks so nice in the end.
I've been enjoying every minute of it. I mean, I used to get really stressed out if I had to do things over, but I'm like, you know what? It's sort of part of the experimental learning process. I mean, I'm not a production builder. I'm a building editor. So it's valuable experience.
That attitude, Rob, probably allows you to learn things that you might not otherwise learn.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
Well, and you do a better job too, right? Like some stuff just doesn't turn out right the first try.
Yeah.
Deja had a Facebook post about how she started some project recently and ended up. You got to go read it. It's funny. It talks about how she started something very deliberate and then got distracted by this, and then she needed to fix something, and then and in the end she found herself with two completely unrelated things happening at the same time. And
I love that.
And I said, when I work on other people's houses, I plan very far in advance all the details. I pre-pack my truck with all my tools. But when I'm working on my own place, it's like I have to sneak in an hour here, an hour there, and I don't know exactly what I want the end result to be sometimes. And so it's like a very different process. It's like you're on your own time. You kind of I find it more enjoyable if I just take my time and don't put a lot of pressure on myself.
Totally. That makes sense to me as a gardener. I'll never forget getting my first piece of land and feeling like that very thing. Boy, this is so much more pleasurable than working for a client.
So have you been working on your landscape, Kiley?
Yeah, I've been out there. There's not that much to do. I like to let things happen naturally. But it's funny that you're talking about Deja having two different projects going on. So I'm still, working on my portraiture. And I often, it's always good, no matter what you're up to. If it's not going well, put it aside and start over. So I
completely start over or just take a break from it?
Same painting going at the same time. So I did check just as in response to one of these listeners' feedback. It got me thinking. I checked on the status of my filter. I wanted to see how dirty my filter was on the new air purifier. And I was very pleased after a month's time to see that my air isn't nearly as dirty as I thought it would be. And I've been using my wood stove a lot. So filter's still very clean, even after a month. I was surprised.
That's cool, nice. But could you really see the small things that you really want to capture?
Of course not, but I was expecting it to be quite dirty already.
From cat hair or other stuff?
No, other stuff. I don't know. I just thought it would be
just dirt.
Dirt, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Jeff, what have you been working on?
Just mostly working outside. The ongoing window trim saga, and just leaves and cleaning out the gardens and all that stuff.
Climate
So
change is good for that project, huh?
Yeah,
With
yeah,
the painting this room.
yeah. It's
So
good to
Jeff,
be able
when
to do
will
that
you
in November.
when will you stop painting? When will it be too cold for you to be painting?
Um, I kind of was at that point, and then it got really nice and warm, so
70
I
Yeah.
and
started
sunny.
again.
Yeah.
Spring.
I've been busy too, and I had a whole bunch of things to do during my week's vacation. It was not a week's vacation in the conventional sense, but I got to say I enjoyed it very much. But after 10 years of talking about it, we finally relocated our washer and dryer in a very clunky closet in the center of the kitchen that blocked the flow of everything. And
I can't believe you lived with that for 10 years. I don't think I could be in that for an hour. That was incredible. Did
Yeah,
it come with the house, Patrick?
it did. And I think, based on when I took it apart, it seemed like it was kind of an afterthought, the way it was constructed. It wasn't built by the same person who did a lot of the other carpentry in the house. I could just tell.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they got the framing lumber to build this disaster, but it's like the worst studs I've ever seen in my entire life. Just complete garbage. Anyway, so it's really opened up the kitchen, but I did have to move some pipes and the ductwork for the dryer and patch some drywall. And then perhaps the biggest project of the whole thing was repainting the whole kitchen, which has 12-foot walls on a couple sides. So I was actually cutting in from an extension ladder in the kitchen.
Yeah. It was fun watching your progress photos throughout the week. And just to explain what Patrick's talking about, he's got this kitchen that's sort of in a corner in his
Sort of
house,
U-shaped.
and a little U shape. But it was almost like someone took like a gigantic refrigerator box and just sort of stuck it in the front of your kitchen. That's what that closet looked like. It was like
we called it a phone booth.
Yeah.
Right. Except it's bigger than a phone booth.
Much bigger. How tall was that thing? It looked like it was like...
It was 8 feet.
Oh, I thought it was even taller than that.
But it's afterthoughts like that are nice to get when you can get rid of them.
Now, your laundry facilities are fully on view now. Does that bother you at all?
Well, so there'll be a countertop on top of them, Kiley, and probably some kind of screening for the front. I was talking to Jeff a little bit about it before the show. Ideally, there'd be doors on it, but the door swing is a big problem for traffic, right? So you could do sliding doors, which don't open into the space, but that means that you have to move them every time you move the laundry from the washer to the dryer, right?
Yeah.
And that seems like a hassle. You could do like a fabric thing that would bunch up potentially to one side when you were using the laundry equipment. That kind of has a kind of country thing going that I'm not so into.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I should really do is ask my buddy Matt Kenny to make some Kumiko panels and go, in all the way with something cool. I wouldn't offer to do that to Carol because that's not really where my brain is. So what'd you guys think? What about the yellow? We picked a pretty bold color.
We did. You went, I was thinking that's like, we need to cheer up yellow, right?
Yeah. You know what? I feel like I see this more. I think people are getting more adventurous with colors. It's like for years and years, everyone was always encouraged to paint their houses very safe colors for resale value or for whatever reason. But it's like, you look at places like in the Caribbean or North Africa where there's these, or the Mediterranean where there's these bright, colorful houses. And it's like, I want to live in a bright, colorful place.
Yeah. It does. It makes you feel good, doesn't it? Do you guys feel cheerier now that you're eating your...
We love the space. It's just so much nicer to be in there. And I frankly, I just sit at the table and stare at the wall. I like the space. One thing I've observed when you first paint a wall or a room with a bright color or a deep color, you're like, oh my God. But then you start bringing stuff back into the space. And, it turns out that there's not that much of it in comparison to when you first paint it, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And I have to admit, I was a little frightened when I first saw the first coat go on the walls because we were putting over this color that we've somewhat derisively called Band-Aid. And you know, it made it really, the yellow really cool instead of warm. And I was just like, oh my God, this is awful. But I've been married 20 years and I've learned to not say things that come to my mind immediately often, you know, like, so that is part of my secret to a happy marriage.
Aww.
And it took 3 coats to make it look the way it was supposed to on the chip, but God, it looks great, I think.
That's a lot of painting.
Yeah, I'm sick of painting, Kylie. I'm never painting again.
I don't like painting.
So, Jeff, what do you do when you're up on an extension ladder with your paint? Do you put it in a little cup? Do you hang it from a rung? What do you do with it?
I've got a little cup that, you know, I can either put on my hand or hang off the ladder.
Is it one of those red beer mug looking things?
Yeah. Not the, what is it? Handy pail?
Handy pail, right?
Yeah, it's not that. It's smaller than that, because that one I would think would get tiresome to hold for a while after a while. And
so I have one of those, and I was using it. That was my solution for up on the ladder. And it's imperfect, but it's a pretty good rig. And what I love is they make these clear plastic liners, so you don't have to wash it out, which is...
Yeah, the one I use, the thing I like about it is it's got a magnet.
To hold the brush.
Yeah,
I like that too. Well, we better get to some feedback before we waste all our time here. This comes from Barbara, not that one, but I'm interesting too.
That made me laugh.
Dear Jeff, for a long time, I've really enjoyed seeing your blue dog art print hanging on the wall behind you. I'm a huge fan of blue dog prints and have one of my own. Suddenly, your blue dog print has been replaced by something completely mundane and uninteresting. Bring back blue dog. Pretty please.
And there it is.
Back.
That's great.
Where did he go?
Yeah.
Well, I just, I don't know. My wife, that's actually a student project that somebody painted, like in high school or something, because my wife is a set decorator, so she buys these things at Goodwill just for the canvases, but she couldn't bring herself to paint over that one.
Aww, that's sweet.
And so I just needed
what's the deal with the
wall, so I grabbed it.
What is the deal with the blue dog? What is this?
It's an artist. I can't remember his name. I keep wanting to say Mario Rodriguez, but he's a woodworker. I can't. But but he does a whole series with the blue dog, and that one's actually a Absolute Vodka ad. But
yeah, it's
George Rodriguez.
Yeah,
American artist, officially from New Iberia, Louisiana.
Well, that's fun. Well, thanks, Barbara. And you definitely are interesting. Hi, FHB podcasters. I was listening to your podcast as I was air sealing and insulating the rim joist of my house. Isn't it great how we can inspire people to do these awful things? Thanks for providing me the impetus to do this, I guess. The fiberglass bat insulation that was stuffed in there holds an amazing amount of mouse poop, along with the occasional desiccated body. On podcast 285, you were answering someone's question about how to seal a tub in a wet room with a curbless shower. Patrick just said, just do a curb already or something like that. Rob chimed in that based on the frequency he cleans hair out of his standard shower drain, it seemed likely to flood. I have a curbless shower that I built based on Jake Bruton's article in FHB issue 255. He said build up, not down, and put the drain at the shower entrance. Well, FHB doesn't often steer me wrong, but boy, do I regret building this shower. It looks very cool, but you have to pay close attention to how often the drain is cleaned out. If you don't, you'll be stepping mid-shower to squeegee the water back to the drain and cleaning out the hair. If your listeners are thinking about a curbless shower, build down, not up, and put the drain at the back so you at least have some warning when the drain is clogging. Keep up the good work and a sharper eye on those yahoos that put together the print magazine.
Aren't you
was
guys
that your article, Patrick?
No. I don't know which Yahoo that was, but it wasn't me.
Sorry, Jake.
I think Matt worked on that.
I think he makes a good point. Why put it at like the place that you can't see it flooding?
Well, I don't understand. I was trying to imagine that scenario. So you're in the shower.
So it's the low
drain's
point
at the front of the shower.
Yeah, they put the shower drain at the low point of the shower, but they made it at the door.
At the front.
So the idea there being, I assume, that you don't have to cut the joists to put the drain in because you have you can pitch down from the back wall instead of pitching down towards the back wall.
I think that's what Jake was saying. Build up the floor at the other end, not cut it down, right?
Yeah,
but you're not going to be standing. I mean, the difference is that you're going to, if you start to get backup in your drain that's at the back, you're standing in, gross water.
Isn't that better though than having like your bathroom flood?
I see what you're saying. So when does it, I don't understand how it fills up. Like,
well, the whole idea is that you've got this linear drain going across the front of your shower, and if the water is cascading down the floor towards it, and if it gets clogged, it just keeps on
visuals. I got
just keeps on going.
Yeah, I got you. Okay,
so it's coming out the door.
Yeah, I understand now.
Just put a curb up already, please.
Yeah.
Right.
Just build an outdoor shower.
Have you heard of other people saying that? With the drain up front like that? Have you heard that problem before?
I mean, I've seen showers in all sorts of configurations with those linear drains, but like the point is that any drain just needs to be cleaned out on a regular basis, especially if you've got people with long hair in the house.
I think that's the point, is you just have to clean the drain often, and some are easier to clean than others. Like when I have to do mine, I have a normal tub shower unit. I have to unscrew the little cover that goes over the drain, and I'm sure there's a lot of people, especially if you live in an apartment, who wouldn't bother to do that or even know you had to, right?
I just leave the screw out so that I can get at it. I have to do it every other day.
Yeah, I actually completely removed the plunger in my drain recently just because we never take baths, and I'm like, it's just not worth it because it clogs up faster with the plunger built in there.
Yep.
I can't think in, the century that we've had modern bathrooms, no one has come up with a better way to have a tub drain than what we have. It seems kind of silly.
The brass plunger that the water and the hair has to go through a hole in the middle of it makes no sense whatsoever at all. Yeah, it needs to be some big wide open hole. But I guess
like 6 inches in diameter, right? Like the size of a coffee can.
Yeah, something you get your whole hand in there to pull the wads of hair out.
I know, right? Instead of tweezers. So gross. Okay, let's move on.
This comes from our friend Jonathon. Greetings. I finally paid a laborer to bring a boatload of PT lumber debris from my backyard. I pursued several options for disposal. 1, renting a pickup and trailer to haul it to the transfer station. 2, buying bagsters from Waste Management. For those of you who are listening and don't know, it's like a big, kind of canvasy sack, although it's made of some kind of plastic. But you buy this at the home center, and then you call the company, and they pick it up with a truck with a big hook later on, once it's full. Or 3, slowly disposing of it in weekly trash. Each option was too expensive, time-consuming, or inconsiderate to my neighbors. I realized with the PT shortage, people would come pick it up for free. Rotten PT lumber with rusty spikes didn't deter people. I posted it on Craigslist and Facebook and immediately got responses. Most people plan to use it for raised planter beds. It's amazing how desperate people were for PT. They couldn't get enough of it. 3 cheers for recycling. Regards,
Yay.
Jonathon.
And he sent a whole bunch of photos of random people loading up their cars with scraps of lumber.
And it looked just horrible. I mean, it was too good for it was too bad for the trash.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking like nice pressure treated 2x here. We're talking like big hacked up hunks of like 6x6s.
I know. I couldn't even imagine somebody making a planter box out of it, quite frankly.
But well, what are you gonna do? Well, I tell you, I mean, I'm the king of like scavenging and getting rid of junk. And I live on a busy enough street that if there's something I don't want, before I take it to the dump, I just put it by the curb, and usually within an hour it's gone.
I do that too. In the city is always fun. When I lived in Seattle, I had a couple tag sales, and it was always fun at the end when, you put out your free sign and then just watch down below, see what people are taking. It's fun.
I couldn't believe the garbage we would put outside our stow house that people would take almost immediately. It's like used waste pipes, like this purple door with this badly cut in pet door in it, with like failed glazing. It was just like, I couldn't believe it. But if you're building a potting shed or something and just need a door to keep out the animals, well, this one wouldn't have worked even for that. But you get my point. This comes from Kathryn in Seattle, and it's a long email, but this woman knows more about indoor air quality monitoring than anyone I've heard from. So
Yeah,
I'm going to
which is
read her
cool.
whole letter because it seems like a real important topic right now, and we've had some discussion about it recently. So
This
here
is a
goes.
little. This is actually a little blog post right here. We should post this.
Well, I bet
It's useful information. Kathryn, you can reach out to me if you'd like me to do that. Let me know.
I think just do it.
Okay.
I listened with interest to your conversation about indoor air quality. When it comes to sensors, there are quite a few, but I certainly agree there's a lot of room for improvement in the consumer market. The Flow 2 by Plume Labs is a portable sensor that gives you PM1, PM2.5, PM10, NO2, and VOCs, which is a nice range of pollutants. I love hearing that description, nice range of pollutants. PM 2.5 is usually the one that people are most concerned with because it's associated with traffic emissions and wildfire smoke. In my home, in my house, I was always amused to find that the particulate levels spiked hugely the moment we started to fry something, which is one reason why kitchen range hoods are so important. Even better was when it noticed that when we were drinking alcohol and the VOCs would spike. I'm kind of curious what she's drinking there, but
It's green alcohol.
Yeah, right. Kylie may notice more while oil painting. At around $200, this is not an incredibly cheap sensor, but since it's portable, it can be shared, so that's nice. I'd love to have one of these to check out from the library. Isn't that a cool idea?
It is a really cool idea because it's not like you need to know that information at all times of the day. Like
It's
maybe
like
Or you do some monitoring and then you're done, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's like using a blower door. You're trying to test
Right.
the baseline,
Another sensor that's very popular is the Purple Air. It's a permanently mounted particulate sensor that uses the data to make global maps of PM 2.5 pollution. They also have redundant sensors to ensure repeatability and longevity. During the recent California wildfires, you could catch the smoke plume shift across the country on this map. They also have an indoor version so you can see how well your filter is doing. This sensor is about the same cost as the Flow at $250. If you're a little more handy with coding, you can get something like the standalone PM 2.5 sensor from Adafruit, which is $40, but you have to connect it to a Raspberry Pi or Arduino and write code for it. Then you can attach a $100 CO2 sensor to make sure that all your filtration and air sealing hasn't compromised your CO2 levels. And add a $20 VOC sensor just for fun. None of these are going to be as accurate as a very expensive sensor, but they do tell you useful things like how bad the air is in your house and where the smoke is leaking in from. In my case, it was down the effing chimney, which is now permanently foamed shut. I confess that when the wildfire smoke was terrible, I was really happy that I had a HEPA HRV and I installed some activated carbon filtration to reduce the terpenes, which make your eyes sting. I comfort myself by saying that though this isn't a cheap hobby, it's still cheaper than hobby cars.
Good for her. I love it. That's awesome.
P.S. When it comes to air exchanges in public buildings for coronavirus safety, 12 ACH is considered good to reduce transmission of respiratory pathogens. This is what is used in ER waiting rooms. So Kathryn has included a bunch of links to these various things if any of you are interested out there in pursuing this further. But thank you so much, Kathryn. I think that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know more people like Kathryn. That's
I know.
like, I feel like I'd like to geek out on that stuff, but it's just like, I've got enough hobbies already. And to like learn how to build Arduino boards with CO2 sensors on it is just doesn't fit into my schedule. but I think it's cool. It's super cool.
It's super cool. Yeah.
I had the unfortunate experience of using ABS solvent adhesive for the first time in my life this 2 weekends ago, I guess it was. And geez, I only, glued a few fittings, but oh my God, did that stuff stink. I don't know what solvent is in there, but I can't imagine it's good for you.
Ugh.
Even with running the range hood on full blast, like it just stunk up the whole house.
Did you wear a respirator while you were using it? No.
So moving on.
So on that topic, Kylie, when I do my welding, I have a really compact respirator that has a H100 or N100 filters in it, and it's supposed to deal with fumes, not just particulates. And if I paint with that thing, I don't smell the solvents at all. And how many plumbers out there do you think wear respirators when they're using that kind of stuff?
And they're using this stuff every day, Rob, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to ask, we'll have to give the plumbers we know, tests, cognitive tests, to see if it's affected their ability to do stuff.
That's upsetting to think about.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. I'm 33, live in about an hour southeast of Sacramento, California, and have been making a good living as a supervisor manager for a precast manufacturer for several years now. So a precast manufacturer, I'm assuming, is like cast concrete products. I find myself unsatisfied. I want to see the fruits of my labors instead of just being a desk jockey. Unfortunately, I'm coming to the realization a little later in life, and desk jockeying is where my skills and expertise lie. In order to get a foundation in residential construction, I'm taking a framing and electrical class at a local community college, mostly online due to COVID, which is not ideal. And of course, I'm listening to your excellent podcast and subscribed to your website. This is a long shot, but I was thinking that if I can find a good contractor in my area, maybe I can negotiate a position that have them get good value with my current skills, yet include some time apprenticing with the tradescraft people. I only want to learn from true craftsmen, and I don't know how to find them. You guys seem to know top-notch contractors across the U.S., so are there any contractors in my area you can recommend? The worst that can happen is they say no, right? Right? That's what I say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we move on to his next question, because I know he has another.
Jessica.
It's her. Okay, I'm sorry. I would say that, go onto either the GBA or FHB forums to try to find some people there. I mean, there's probably plenty of other forums out there you could find on construction, but I just know that we've got good, we've got some good people on there that are always jump right in and offer advice. So I would say, as much as we do know contractors all over the country, to get specifically close to where Jessica lives, I would say that I would probably try a local forum or even Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica, I implore you to do this because every day I hear from contractors they cannot find good help.
Yes. Yeah.
And people want to train the right person, right? And if you show you are committed to learning the craft or learning what they need you to do, people are going to want to hire you. I guarantee it.
Yes.
We need good people in the business.
Yep.
I also have a podcast question. On the West Coast, we don't have basements. Water heaters are in the garage and HVAC is on the roof or in the ground outside. Newer homes may have it in the attic. Regardless of where the main unit is, ducting is always in the attic if the foundation is slab on grade. The attics are all vented, though, which sounds like the safest route from the podcast. How do you bring the mechanicals into the conditioned envelope under these circumstances? Do you put the HVAC in the garage and insulate the garage? The ducting still has to go through the attic, so then you just air seal and wrap as much insulation as you can around them? Love you guys, Jessica. So, Jessica, you got to put it in the ductwork in chases or move it into the floor system if it's a 2-story house. And the good way to put it into the floor system is with open web trusses. But you just have to plan for it. And I think that's the obstacle that many builders and designers have, is that they don't want to plan for the ductwork. They don't want to devote that time and space to making room for it.
You could also do like a plenum truss, right? That's what Randy Williams is a big fan of doing.
So that's what I'm talking about with the open web trusses. Can have these, cavities built into them that allow you to put big ducts in there, which you can't do in a normal floor system because the holes are too big.
Sure. And if we're talking in slab on grade houses, especially if we're talking existing houses, you either have to build some drop soffits inside or, to take up some space inside the house itself to bury those ducts in walls or ceilings. Or if you've got an unfinished attic, a lot of people will just
bury them,
try to seal the ducts in the attic and wrap them with insulation. But I imagine that is probably something that doesn't work great, and you just don't know if they're breathing in dirt from all the stuff around them. I mean, what I plan on doing in my back attic is actually building a framed soffit or a framed chase above the ceiling, and then boxing that in with some plywood later on, so that you can at least air seal that and insulate that instead of just burying the ducts themselves in insulation.
Although if you are going to do the burying of the ducts and insulation, Martin Holliday has a good article on how to do it and where exactly they should be located in terms of height from floor
Within the insulation layer, right,
within the
Kylie?
insulation layer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The
And he
risk is
doesn't
condensation
seem to-
soaking the insulation, right?
He doesn't seem to discourage. I didn't get the sense that he was saying this is not a great idea, not the best option, but here's how to do it. He didn't really give it any disclaimers, but you guys are saying, I mean, it strikes me too that it would be ideal to have it in its own chase.
I think that's ideal. Yeah. So next best is to have take the insulation to the roof line, not the attic, not the second floor ceiling or first floor ceiling, but move it up to the roof. And then all the equipment and the ductwork is within the conditioned envelope. But as Jessica points out, unvented assemblies are easier to get right than unvented hot roof assemblies.
Yeah. Yeah, there are actually quite a few articles and even Q&A topics, posts on GBA. So if you just basically search "get your ducts indoors" on Green Building Advisor, you're going to find a whole host of options where people have really gone into detail about this, including Allison Bales has a really nice article about it on there.
It's a good question, Jessica. And, so much of the country does this, put ductwork and unconditioned attics and equipment up there. And it really affects the energy efficiency of your system because, that's the outside temperature. So like you wouldn't put your furnace and your ductwork like outside your wall, right? But people routinely put it up in their cold or hot attic. And I don't really get it. But we have basements in the Northeast. So, I mean, like, of course that's where you put it. And, but not every place does. I get it. Or you use mini splits, right, Rob? Get rid of the ductwork altogether.
Works for me.
How many do you have? You collect them, right?
Yeah. I've got 3 head units, which isn't quite enough for this big chopped up house of mine. I'm actually, when I was talking just a moment ago about putting ducts in the attic, I have the back of my house has 8-foot ceilings and the front of my house has 9-foot ceilings. So there's a 2-foot drop in the ceiling from my daughter's bedroom from our office. And so there's a space in that unfinished attic where I want to maybe get one of those cassette or multi-duct units. It's like a ducted mini split system. And I could, rather than having to get 2 separate head units for these 2 tiny rooms, I could get a ceiling cassette or a ducted unit in that dropped ceiling and duct it into both of the rooms from that space. So, but yeah, I'm gonna frame it out with 2x4s so that I can insulate it from the top and still access it all from underneath where the registers are going to be.
Smart.
More than once we've received emails with photos showing what I described as the air handler coffin in the attic, where people have actually built a rigid foam box around their air handler to keep that outside of the unconditioned attic, which seems like a smart idea, but I would worry about, like, do equipment manufacturers want you to do that? And my guess is no. But if you provide the air needed for the equipment, it's not doing its job. So you're really putting it in what amounts to an igloo cooler. And my guess is when they design and build these pieces of equipment, they're not imagining you're going to do that with it.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of didn't answer Jessica's second part of that question, which was where do you put the equipment? And if you put it in the attic, hopefully you would try to be able to build almost like a little utility space up there. So not just a coffin, but an actual mini room. Or like she suggested, maybe you can build a garage, mechanical closet in the corner of your garage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the most common and most sensible thing.
I'm sure the HVAC guy would appreciate that more than being up in the attic.
In a tiny little room. This comes from Katie in Wisconsin. Hi, FHB crew. We bought an old Wisconsin farmhouse built around 1900 in February and have been gutting/fixing it all up because 2020 needed a bit more, Anyway, there are a couple architectural features that I've never seen before. I've been researching/asking everyone in my world, and no one knows the answer. So I'm turning to your expertise and network. 1, what style is our roof? It's double hipped twice. Is this common anywhere? The hips all meet in the center around the chimney. It's awesome because the upstairs is huge, but it was also a terrible roof to cut our teeth on when we redid it this summer. 8 hips, 8 valleys, so much flashing in the center. I've seen this on double hipped houses, just never going all the way back to the center. So I'm going to let one of you try and explain this roof, and then I'll kind of weigh in with my take on it.
So basically, it's as if you took a simple square hip roofed house, where you've got your hip rafter coming down all four corners.
Pyramidal, right, Rob?
Yep, a pyramid roof. And then you did a full height flush to the outside wall doghouse dormer embedded into each of the four sides of the roof. So it's as if you took like two gable end roofs and crisscrossed them and then stuck a hip roof in the middle and kind of mashed it all together.
It's so strange. Have you guys
It's so attractive, though. It is absolutely beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, my description of it does not describe how elegant this is. I mean, it's a gorgeous layout. I mean, it's basically, obviously the carpenter who built this house was someone who really was proud of their skills between that roof framing and the flares that she's talking about, which hey,
we're not talking about that yet.
Okay,
Jumping the gun. So I would describe this like as a four-square style house, right? And four-square houses often have hip roofs with dormers, except these doghouse dormers, as Rob suggested, is really big. They are really wide.
They're almost like gables.
The geometry of the roof provides a lot of headroom in the third floor space. It's just super cool.
Did you guys see photos of the actual house, or I'm just got this rendering?
Just an illustration now.
Okay.
So honestly, Katie, I don't know what kind of roof this is. So I'm going to ask our listeners to go to the podcast website and look at this and tell us if you know what. Maybe you guys figured out what it's called.
No.
I've never seen another example of it. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces. I've seen some of the details that are in this roof on other houses before, but not all together the way this one is.
How would you describe this, Jeff?
I think Rob's description was really a really good description of it, because it is complicated.
It's complicated. Yeah, somebody was clearly showing off their like roof framing chops, right, Rob?
For sure.
Number 2, the exterior has decorative drip edge kickouts, eyebrow things above the gable windows, another sawtooth drip edge below the gable windows, and a foundation skirt, the only style I've been able to find any information on. What are these features called? My internet searches have failed. Below, I have listed some search terms that yielded no result for your amusement. Attached is a digital image of the house in case my ramblings didn't quite do it. Thanks for all you do and grounding us through this crazy year. Thank you.
So, are those kickouts at the midpoint of the window and also above?
Yes. Yeah. So on a lot of Victorian houses, particularly the late Victorian houses, the upper courses would have decorative shingle details, and a lot of times they would put blocking or shims underneath them to kick them out. And the most common word I've seen to use to describe it is a flare. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we even have an article on doing a flared base on shingles on a foundation of the foundation of a house. As Joe Stieberg had pointed out in his talk about water management of like exterior details on houses, a lot of times this stuff was functional as much as it was aesthetic, because it would kick the water out away from large, tall sections of siding so that it would prevent water from penetrating into the wall.
And in this case, the windows too, right?
Yeah, but yeah, so basically there's probably a piece of blocking underneath there that they then fur out to get the shingles to curve out. And then they put some kind of crown molding underneath it. If you look at pictures of like 1890s Victorian houses, you can find a lot of details like that.
So one thing that I really like is when a design element that's beautiful also serves a practical function, right? Mm-hmm. And the flares that were put on this house, as Kiley points out, meant to get the water away from that window because it's really exposed. It's up high and it's big and there's a lot of wall around it. So anything you can do to keep that water away from that window is going to make it last longer. Yeah. And the same is true, in New England, we got bad storms. The first European settled areas of the country, they figured out that if you flare the bottom of the walls, either by a buildup of clapboards, you space them more tightly together, or additional layers of shingles, or as Rob suggests, you put some additional layers of some other material underneath to get that bottom of the wall further away from the foundation once again to keep water from coming in your house. And I love it.
Flashing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, get the water away. So there you go. I think that's as good as we can do, Katie, with regard to the name of your roof. I wish I could tell you. Maybe someone who listens will have a suggestion.
Might not have a style name. I mean, it might just be double-hipped roof. Right?
I liked her description. What'd she call it?
Double-hipped twice?
Yeah, double-hipped twice.
Yeah. I think it's a 4-square double gable roof. Yeah, that's it.
It's a beautiful house.
It is.
It's great.
Yeah.
So nice. Kylie, to your comment about 19th century flashing, when I pulled the cedar clapboards off above my back door when I was doing this project at home, there's no flash, there's no head flashing on the door, but the top piece of the door casing was cut in such a way that it was obviously hand planed, so that it kicked up and back with a flare at the back that basically mimicked the top edge of the course of siding on both sides of it, so that the actual clapboard above the door keyed into the top of the casing to act sort of like a flashing detail.
You know, Mason Lord showed me something. I feel like it was along those same lines. That timber frame that he's doing the deep energy retrofit on. There were some windows that he had pulled out, original windows, and they had used siding upside down and reversed so that it at the top of the window, so that it kicked out like that. I wonder if that's why they did that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
And now we can't even build houses that like don't keep any water out. They're like compost within 10 years behind the siding. I'm sorry, that was uncalled for.
So negative.
This is from Ben in Ohio. Dear FHB, with the recent pandemic, our family faces the challenge of maintaining contact while still maintaining distance. My parents are both in the high-risk categories, and while I have reduced my trade work and remain inside their sphere of people, my sister runs another business and is outside our sphere. My mother came up with the great idea of family lunches on Sundays on the country porch. This has worked very well until when a Sunday dropped below 50 degrees. While it was a great chance to experience my new Milwaukee heated jacket, the remainder of the family appeared to be less enthused. What creative recommendations do you have for those of us in the north headed into winter who want to meet outside with family? How do we keep everyone comfortable while maintaining the proper distance? Our present solution is a series of tarps boxing in the upper half of the porch. There is a gap at the top and it allows airflow, with a diesel-fueled radiant heater from Summit Racing warming up the air, and aimed at my sister, who sacrificially sits at the porch opening, being blasted by the 70,000 BTU breath of a dragon. We tried to find a patio heater with no success. This seemed like a fun brainstorming question for you all, and I thought you might have some zany and some serious solutions. I find New Englanders are much better at winter survival than us Midwest folk. Signed, Ben.
You know, he's trying to figure out how to keep people comfortable outside, all people comfortable outside, but it's hard enough to keep all people comfortable inside, right?
Yes.
Well, I think, he kind of hinted at one solution there. He just needs to buy everybody in his family Milwaukee jackets for Christmas.
That's what I was going to say.
Right? For some reason, this email had me picturing like a building of a sweat lodge with trash bags, and I don't know. My mind went to a strange place. I did find a product that he might be interested in, though. I don't know. I didn't
go for it.
I didn't get into consumer reviews or anything, but for $350, he could get a combination fan and space heater from Riker. That's Reiker. And so it is just what it sounds like. It's not a space heating unit on the floor. It radiates the heat from above. So apparently it has really good distribution. That's what they claim anyway. It says warm air is pulled into the heating chamber of the fan through an impeller motor. Within 12 seconds, the heating elements warm the air to about 230 degrees, which sounds excessively hot, but warm air is exhausted through the heating elements and into the living space.
So how many BTUs is that thing?
I don't know. They didn't mention it. I didn't get into it.
Are you going to get all technical on us, Rob?
I know,
well,
right?
I just want to make sure it's sufficient,
That's another thing I did, though. I haven't come across anything quite like it.
So I feel like when you go to Home Depot or any of those other big box stores, you see they've got those radiant heaters above the cash registers, and they're usually gas fired. And the thing about a forced air heater is that it's already drafty enough out on that porch, and blasting with hot air is going to make pretty uneven distribution of heat in an open space, I would imagine. But my neighbors, I haven't tried it out yet, but my neighbor's got one of those ones you see at restaurants, those gas patio heaters they call
well, so
them.
that he just mentioned that he's not going to find that now because like every restaurant needs a dozen of them, right?
Exactly.
Like
That's why I thought it was fan.
But the thing is, as much as I like to shop at local stores, sometimes there's certain things that you can only find online. And I did find, just did a quick search, some of those patio heaters. But if you want to go a little bit less typical, if we're talking about something that you can mount, in on the porch, there's all different kinds of configurations of those radiant heaters. Some of them are long tubes. Some of them are boxes that are on brackets that bolt to the ceiling, and they all typically run on LP or natural gas. And I think obviously if you're on a wooden porch, you got to be worried about fire safety if you're going to be running a gas heater. I don't know what kind of porch he has, but
another reason
a flammable one, it's wood.
Yeah. But I would say that and I'm sure that's something people have to really think about. I'm sure, just like when we had those big power outages in the winter in past years, and people do crazy things like bring their gas barbecue grill inside the house to try to heat the house. The first priority is safety here.
Do not do that.
Yeah, the first priority is safety, both from fire safety and noxious fumes. Yeah. But I would think that some sort of a radiant heater, and there's just so many different options for radiant heaters out there that I bet you if you did a good search online, you could find something in the size and configuration that could work for any situation.
So I got two solutions: the fun one and the safe and practical one. And as you guys have both pointed out, and I'm sure Jeff would too, is it has to be radiant, because if you're heating the air, you can't build an enclosure, because that defeats the whole purpose of being outside and socially distanced, right? If you're all sharing the same warm air, you're also sharing potentially virus droplets, right? So it has to have tons of airflow. It has to be an open space, and the only way you're going to be comfortable in that space is if it's some kind of radiant system. And like Rob says, that the propane ones or gas ones that they have at the home center are a perfect example. And they sell them much smaller ones for like home shops where people are working in their garage and they don't want to heat the space all the time. But to be comfortable there, you put this heater on that's in the ceiling ordinarily, and you work under it, and it's nice. My better solution is, depending on where you are, get off the porch, go into the front yard, and burn some pallets and hang around it and enjoy a bonfire, right?
Yeah.
And you're outside, and you're going to have the heat of the bonfire. But if you're in suburbia, that might upset your neighbors depending on their uptightness level. So that's
they
what
also
I would
might
do.
have furniture and whatnot to make it, on the porch that they want to.
Yeah, well, you bring the porch furniture and put it around the bonfire, and come on, or you put it on the bonfire or whatever.
Honestly, I don't know why I didn't even mention the fire, because that's what we've been doing the past couple of weekend nights, is having friends over that we haven't seen in months, and just social distancing around a fire pit that I've got in the backyard. And the one thing is, on the colder nights, might be nice to have some Adirondack chairs or something with a high back, because that's the problem about on a cold night sitting around a fire, is that your front is nice and toasty warm and your back is. So get some blankets or some hoodies and a bonfire, a fire pit. That sounds like a great idea.
Ben, the other thing I would suggest, so folks who are into snowmobiling have invented a bunch of gear to make you comfortable even when you're like moving 70 miles an hour on a snow machine when it's 0. And I would explore all of those very high-tech garments, and you can even wear the helmet, and that'll help prevent the spread of the disease too.
And it'll cost a lot less than running a big, huge propane heater on your porch.
Plus, you're going to look cool, because those are all like super colorful getup, I can tell you. Speaking of cold, this comes from Kyle in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Hello from snowy Calgary. It's currently -4 Celsius in October. That's like below freezing, right, Rob?
Sounds
That's
like
what
it.
it should be. It's October.
I recently renovated a 1,600 square foot 60s bi-level house. To paint a picture, the landing at the front door is 7 steps down to the basement, 7 up to the main floor. When you arrive at the main floor, the living room is directly adjacent to the front door landing, although grade separated with a railing. I kept the existing duct system largely intact, but in locations I changed the heat registers and returns to new locations, along with a new gas furnace. 2 years later, I have found one issue which is likely a function of the house design / heating system choice. The main issue is the front door / side light is always cold. On top of this, the heat register at the landing barely blows since it's the furthest away from the furnace, and there is a double elbow coming down from the basement ceiling to get it to the mid-landing. The living room is directly adjacent to this area and feels a little drafty, especially on days when it's marginally cold, so the furnace isn't coming on frequently. I was looking into a little wall-mounted convection blower / heater to condition this space a little better. Any thoughts? Any thoughts?
So one of the problems with the split level house, and I run into the same problem with my house because I've got a big front staircase, and it used to be enclosed in a hallway, so the rooms were all separate from it. But they tore that wall down, and so now my living room and dining room open up to this big open staircase, which basically sucks all the heat out of my living room. And when you've got a front door with a landing in those split level houses, there's just a whole lot of room for air movement. And that's why I've seen in a lot of those houses, they actually build a knee wall instead of just a pass through railing, like where the living room meets that staircase. Because if it's drafty, I mean, maybe actually blocking some of that draft from that stairwell could actually help out a bit. I mean, and that's not solving the whole problem. I mean, we've got to deal with the heating system issue too, but
Kylie, you kind of have this situation in your house.
I was thinking it is kind of similar. Mm-hmm.
So what do you do? You're just cold.
I'm not really cold. I'm unusual because I like it cold, so it doesn't bother me the way it does bother a lot of people. But yeah, it's like it's essentially, it feels like an outdoor space, no question. I just don't go in there much.
Jeff, what would you do here?
I think, again, some sort of a radiant heater just to heat that area and not try and heat the whole house with it.
Right.
I find a little electric space heater to be very important to keeping me comfortable in my new workshop / office, right? Because we don't have central heat in this building. There's a wood stove, but all the heat goes upstairs to Liam when that's running, and so I just run this little 5,000 watt heater, and like within an hour, it's super nice in here. I've had it up to like 75, and it's awesome.
It heats up more than the space that I have a space heater too, but I have to sit sort of right near it to feel. Does it heat your whole office space?
Oh yeah, this building's pretty airtight, Kylie. Even without a damper in the 6-inch wood stove pipe, I got about 3 air changes. So I think if I plugged that, it would probably be 2 or less. So it's pretty airtight.
I forgot. We forgot to close the damper on my wood stove when we did my blower door test. I realized after the fact.
Well, you're going to be down to be like passive house levels by the time you got a window closed that Rob closed and the damper shut. Man, it's going to be awesome.
So dumb.
So, one thing I'm surprised hasn't taken off more, and I know Peter Yost talks a lot about this when he talks about like tuning a space for comfort. I remember seeing him give a talk one time about how they have these panel radiant heaters. They look like just big flat, shiny, pieces of, I don't know. Sometimes they can even be embedded into the walls, into the drywall. Some of them are electric, some of them are hydronic, and we heard that really awesome talk at the summit a couple weeks ago about radiant as a solution for heating in homes and how nice and even it you don't have to worry about the airflow in the house. It's just there, and
and it doesn't make any noise.
No,
and it's just works. I
didn't look it up before we got on today, but I've looked it up in the past for spots in my house where I thought we could use something like that. But for I think only a couple $100, you can buy these electric radiant panels, and I feel like some of them are even made so that you can use them almost like a picture frame. Like you put some sort of artwork or something on it, so that it hangs on the wall as a decorative piece, but it's actually a large surface, a radiant heating surface, and
I want to see one of those because I want to see the like ginormous 240 cord coming out of this painting. Like,
well, that's the thing is that, I mean, if you live in a place where electricity is expensive, a radiant heater like that is not exactly your most economical option. But if a small one that runs on 110 might actually be better than one of those fan-driven heaters that people put under their desks to keep their feet warm, because the fact that you're moving air is actually taking away some of the warm
comfort.
feel
that
you feel. Because if there's anytime there's moving air, you get the feeling of a reduction in temperature. So if you have radiant heat as opposed to a fan-driven heater, you're going to feel warmer with the same amount of heat.
Yeah, I think Ace was telling me about a bathroom that they did in a Vermont farmhouse, and they had this massive tub, and while waiting for the tub to fill, they wound up using radiant heat in the walls just to make the room more comfortable to be in while they were like waiting for the tub to fill up. I thought that was a good use of that kind of heat system. Seems like a good room to use it in.
Yeah, being naked in any room, even inside in Vermont in wintertime, you're going to be cold.
Except a sauna.
Except a sauna.
I think I'm going to
tell
track down
Kyle
one of those radiant heaters and try them out. So
I think you should. I'm worried about like what happens when someone puts a nail through it, thinking they're hanging a picture, like it seems like a problem to me.
Yeah, I mean, the ones embedded in the walls, obviously there's some risks involved there, but the ones that hang on a wall like a panel, which are obviously something you're not going to drive a nail through because it's already something hanging on the wall.
Right. I was going to tell Kyle to really check out his entry door, right? Make sure it's the threshold is adjusted correctly. Most modern doors have an adjustable threshold. Make sure it's touching the sweep. And make sure it's air sealed. The weather stripping is good, because if that door is even leaking a little, it's going to make that space super cold. And that is not an uncommon scenario. I would definitely look to the door and the opening and make sure that's spray foamed or sealed with tape or whatever. If you pull the casing off and look, it's not a big deal. And I think that might go a long way to making this little space a lot more comfortable.
He also mentioned that the door has side lights, and if he doesn't want to invest in anything really expensive, you can just buy those film kits for the winter time that you tape and shrink wrap, heat shrink onto there to sort of give those side lights a little bit more insulating value.
Side lights are kind of dumb in a cold climate.
What's that?
I think side lights are kind of dumb in cold climates.
They look great though, Kiley. You must admit.
Yeah.
If you get good insulated glass, it's not a big deal,
I got to say that, you just reminded me, Rob, that in Calgary, the glass is always going to be colder than the air temperature, right? So that's going to make that space feel cold too. It might not even be that the air temperature is that much different, but you're giving up all your body heat to this surface that, in the best case is tens of degrees colder than you. So that's going to make you feel cold, right?
Yeah. I mean, big curtains could help in a situation like that. That's the thing is, I mean, we've talked about this before, but even if the air temperature in the room is more comfortable temperature, if you are exposed to a large surface that is at a lower temperature, it's the opposite of what we were talking about, those radiant heaters. It's actually sucking the heat out of you through radiant.
I feel it.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of people don't know that.
No,
not our listeners, but the general populace. I think people don't realize that. Unless you're told, it wouldn't occur to you, right?
You touched on it earlier, Kiley, and I presume it was something, a summit presentation or maybe some GBA content, but you will never get everyone comfortable in a room, right? If you have more than a few people, and not everyone is going to be comfortable, right?
Yes, and there are gender differences too. I just read about a study. I'm reading that book, Healthy Buildings, for the BS and Beer book club, and I was just reading about there's gender differences, like data-driven differences between men and women in office settings, and why women are always much colder than men. I mean, it's a thing. It's science.
It's science.
Biology. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. We're going to make another point there.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm done. You guys have anything to add to this discussion? Rob, do you want to talk about holiday gift guides, or not holiday gift giving, and things that people might want to consider giving their fine home building enthusiast family members or buying for themselves?
Well, as we've mentioned in the past several episodes, we've got a whole bunch of holiday sales going on right now, and the best way to find out what they are for our book and other hard goods issues of the magazine, whatever, is go to tauntonstore.com, and you will find the sales available right on there. But also we'll be doing sales on memberships of finehomebuilding.com throughout the end of the year. And if you basically just go to the homepage, you should probably see some ads for that. But also if you just go to finehomebuilding.com/members or finehomebuilding.com/subscribe. And the best deal really is there are all access, because you get the print magazine and access to the website and access to the archive of every issue that we've ever published. So you get all of those benefits under one package. And let me just check what the sale price is right now. I mean, and the thing is, if you're not sure that you want to invest it, because like basically if you go to our website right now.
So what's the price, Rob? You didn't even finish that part.
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure what the sale is. They've been running different sales as we get closer to the holidays. The percentages are I think probably going to go up, but it's I think it was something up to like 50% off in the store right now. But even at the regular rate, we're talking $750 a month or $75 a year gets you the membership subscription and the archive of all almost nearly 300 issues nearly we've published in the magazine now. So
I took my most recent one in the house.
Yeah.
What, Kylie?
Which issue are we working on right now?
What did you add?
What number is it?
The next one's going to be
297
is the next one. And so 296 just hit the newsstands just this past week. So it's available now. And what else is going on? Our framing guide. As we record this, it's not done, but by the time this episode airs, our framing guide, those project guides I've been talking about, which are one of the best reasons right now to subscribe to the member access for the website, because we are working through every topic that we've ever published in our hundreds of issues and creating these comprehensive guides of a couple hundred articles and videos a piece on every important topic in home building.
All about framing stuff, and you have similar ones for drywall and painting and roofing, and so this helps folks find all the information easily when they go to research a topic on our website.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, it gives me an opportunity to cut off Rob and mention that Fine Home Building is celebrating its 4th decade in 2021. And you guys have heard me say that I am proud to be affiliated with such a storied brand, but it also means you all who listen to this show are going to get the opportunity to interview one of us. We're going to ask you to send your requests to the FHB podcast email box, and we'll pick one or two or more, and you folks are going to get to interview us on a special edition or more than one of the Fine Home Building podcast. So
That's
I can't
fun.
wait to hear.
Is that your
I can't
idea,
wait to
Patrick?
hear. No, but I'd be glad to take credit for it,
Is
Kylie.
that Brian's idea? I want to know who came up with that.
So you all better have a good application idea and what questions you think about you're going to want to ask us, and float it by us. We'll take one or more, and it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to interview Rob.
Yeah.
And Jeff. I really want to know what's on Jeff's mind when we're recording this show.
A lot of questions, yes.
Anyone else got anything? What's your next project for the coming weekend, Jeff?
I really don't know.
Well, that's a good place to be, right?
So
What
much
about you,
is
Kylie?
Weather dependent.
Yeah, this time of year especially, right? What about you, Kylie? What are you going to be doing?
Oh, I'm all about painting from here on out. That's all you guys are going to hear about. I'm in,
Okay.
full-heartedly.
So you're going to get one of those air quality monitoring systems that Kathryn discussed to make sure you're not.
Maybe she'll code program one for me.
I'm going to get you a respirator for Christmas.
I know. I should probably be wearing one.
How about you, Rob? You're going to continue with siding, or you got other stuff?
Yeah, no, I got to get that siding done before I do anything else. I figure another day or two I could bang that job out.
And you could drag that out, though, a week if you want. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. Thanks to Rob, Kiley, and Jeff for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com, and please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Thanks very much, folks. Stay safe, happy building, and please keep craft alive.